And let's see what happens. Excellent connection, you are live. Preview 3, 2, 1. Testing, testing, testing. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. It is British Grand Prix weekend. The first Grand Prix in Britain since last year. And the final Grand Prix for a couple of weekends. After this, there are 2 weekends off before we get to Spa. And it's a crucial Grand Prix of the season. We are halfway through the season after this Grand Prix. 12 down, 12 to go. And it could be a critical weekend for the championship, for where Lando Norris sits, whether Max Verstappen can somehow claw his way back into the fight, or whether Ferrari are going to finally unleash the potential that they've been promising us for a long time now. Reports that maybe the Ferrari is finally this weekend where it was meant to be all season long. But we shall find out in the coming minutes, because 1 hour from now, qualifying gets underway. I don't know what's going to happen. It's really wide open. There's still a feeling that we'll get into that maybe McLaren have a slight edge, but Ferrari are in the mix. I don't think you can ever fully count out Max Verstappen. And ladies and gentlemen, it is good to be here back again with you all. Welcome all to the chat. We are checking. Good morning, Ruben. DMO, Ferrari is back. We'll see. We'll see about Ferrari. I think you know what it's like with Ferrari? At some point every year, they will always be there or thereabouts. Lawrence says, should Ollie get a grid penalty? We're going to get to that in a second for sure, because I don't know what was going through these fellas' heads towards the end of practice today. What's good, Ro? Hey, mate, from Korea. I've never been to Korea. I think I need to go. I had a friend recommend that I go to Japan. He gave me a little route. But if I'm going to go to that part of Asia, maybe I should stay a little longer. Maybe we need a Korean Grand Prix back. What do we think about that? Luke says Ferrari are not back. I mean, this is the two sides of the coin. Let's go Stroll. Who did he block? Was it Sainz? Stroll had another little incident at Cops. I've seen quite a few. It's been a very hectic weekend. All of these practice sessions, there's been drama, there have been spins. We got a lot to get into in the next hour, and we got to figure out who's going to get pole and what that means for the championship. I didn't see FP3. Did Hamilton screw up a lap? How did he drop to 11th? We'll get into that, Noel. Hamilton's first lap was not very good. He was on a lap that was a 10th up on Leclerc, so he would have been P1, but then there was a red flag. I don't know if he was going to close out the lap to get P1, but Hamilton was on a lap that was just as quick, if not quicker, than the leaders, and then there was a red flag happens 2/3 of the way through the lap. So we never got to see what Hamilton was capable of in the final practice session, which was particularly exciting. Swaggy says, Tag, how long have you been watching F1? What was the first memorable race you remember? I think, when would my first race I ever watched have been? 2007 or 2008, one of the 2 years. I was like 8 or 9. I used to watch it with my dad. And the first memorable race I remember has just got to be Brazil 2008. That's the first race I remember watching. And I'm sure it's the case for many people my age, actually. Don't get your hopes up, says Lucas. Have you seen the Bearman? Oh, did he get another 10th place pen? I actually haven't seen that yet. I was going to mention it when we get into the stuff. Yeah, look at that, 8 minutes ago. Ollie gets another 10th place penalty. Wow, this guy, I mean, look, he had it coming, to be fair. He did have it coming. I'm not really sure what he was playing at. Damn, he's on 8 penalty points now. That's actually quite a lot. Bearman's only got himself to blame for that one. We'll get to that in a second. How was Russell looking? Honestly, not very good. The Mercedes has seemingly got worse this weekend so far. I still think they can put it together, but I'll just mention Russell's pole time from last year has already been beaten by Lando and by, I think, a number of the drivers now. So, you know, it's not like these teams have moved backwards at this track. I don't know what the weather looks like. I'm assuming it's going to stay cloudy and dry today. I know there were a few spots. I don't think we're going to get, even if it rains a bit, we're not going to get to inters. We might get, a few drops that disrupt the session. That's certainly possible. Welcome to all 422 of you in here already. Only 40 likes on the stream. Come on, we can rectify that. Okay, gentlemen, let's get into it because we've got a lot to talk about. in the next few minutes. You know what? Let's just get into this Ollie Bearman stuff because it's literally just been confirmed. So I'll do this right about now. At the end of the practice session, we got this moment. You guys can just about see it. Yo, Ruben, what's good? Thank you for the $5. Could listen to you yap about COD and F1 all day. You know, we're all good at we're pretty good at yapping. We've been doing this long enough now, but I do appreciate that. How do I go to the small cam? There we go. Finally learned how to use this software. So this was Ollie Bearman at the. So okay, let me just quickly break it down. If you guys didn't watch FP3, let me quickly break it down. So there was a red flag because Bearman's floor broke. I think it was his floor. And there was a piece of debris on the track, and that disrupted Hamilton's lap. Hamilton was on. This was Hamilton's lap. He was 0.074 up on Leclerc's P1 time at the time. He had a really quick Sector 1. He was slightly, not weaker, he was still strong, but he had a good Sector 2. And he was a 10th up on Leclerc. And if he closed out the lap, he would have been, of course, right in the mix, right at the top. But just at this moment, there was a bit of debris that Hamilton had just driven past, and the session was red flagged. So we never got to see Hamilton's lap. The session then resumes, and Bortoletto has a very strange crash. He's coming through Beckett's. He loses the rear. He goes to correct it, but if you lose the rear at that speed, there's nothing you can do. He hits the let's say, I mean, it's almost like the grass, really, but the grass is clearly not exactly flat there. He spins the car backwards, then hits a big bump, and it cracks his suspension. He just about stops before the wall. And, yeah, so Bortoletto has a big incident. Red flag, session over. It is what it is. No one else can get a fast lap in. Okay. So then Ollie Bearman decides to come into the pits like an absolute charging bull and decided that he was going to push. You know, I guess he wanted to do some practice, right? He wanted to practice the entry to the pit lane at high speed, getting down to 60 kph, because it's a 60 kph pit lane here at Silverstone. There has been talk that the FIA want to raise it so it increases the likelihood of a two-stop, because it takes a long time to come into the pit to Silverstone. So Bearman decides to push the limits a little bit. He comes in way too hot. His brakes are colder than he would like, and he drops it. He loses. I mean, I might even have the video of it. I'm not sure if I do, but he loses. Yeah, here we go. Bearman's crash at pit entry. So he comes into the pits. He pushes it a lot. Here we go. You guys can just about see it. And then he loses the car because the brakes are a bit cold. He locks up the rears, and then he ends up just smashing into the wall for just no reason at all. And yeah, I do feel bad for Ollie because I actually really rate him as a driver, but he has done a couple of these things now. Look, at the end of the day, he's a rookie, isn't he? And it's a rookie mistake. And but it's a pretty costly mistake. Was it? Remind me. It was Monaco when he overtook under the red flag and he got a 10-second penalty, or 10-place penalty, and that felt a bit harsh. But we know that the stewards are generally being very harsh when it comes to these penalties, right? Like, that's how they're doing it at the moment. It's like, yeah, if you do anything dodgy under a red flag, they will give you a penalty, and a big one. So that's what happened to Ollie here. And yeah, Max was laughing at him coming into the picture. I thought it was pretty funny, really. So he ripped the nose off his car. And this has just been confirmed here by the stewards that there is a drop of 10 positions for the next race in which the driver participates. Now, the reason why the session was red flagged, car 87 had slowed down for the red flag and he was approaching turn 15. He accelerated significantly to race pace and entered the pit road at 260 kph. He lost control of the car. I think they said that he was, yeah, as you see here. In fact, we looked at a previous in-lap under normal racing conditions and found that he was faster in this lap under a red flag. They even go on to say, to make matters worse, he lost control of the car and crashed into the barriers while at speed. The driver informed us that he misjudged the fact that his brakes were not warm because the lap was done slowly. This may be a factor contributing, but it was not a mitigating factor because they were just like, you donkey. We've accordingly penalised it per the guidelines. Now, they released the guidelines the other day, didn't they? So they're now public. So they can't be like, oh, well, we've just chosen this. The guidelines say this, but 4 penalty points. Like, 4 penalty points is a lot, though. Like the 10th place grid penalty, fair enough. It doesn't really matter anyway. He's going to be starting near the back. But 4 penalty points is hefty. How many did Max get? He got 3, didn't he, for crashing into George at Spain? Obviously, people have their opinion on that. But 4 penalty points is aggressive. I know that that's what the guidelines say. But it's a lot, right? It feels... People will talk about this because they'll say, damn, 4 penalty points for... At the end of the day, he crashed his own car. He didn't kill, you know what I mean? He didn't destroy anyone else's race, did he? He's crashed his own car into the wall. So it's, okay, yeah, it's obviously a penalty because he was driving erratically and unsafely under red flag. But he's not taken anyone else out. So 4 penalty points seems to me a bit excessive. But actually quite excessive. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I think it was 3, Pierce, in Spain for Max, because some other instance had been penalised with 2, and the drama was that if Max had done it intentionally, then it would have been 4, that they decided that he wasn't. Because this is a repeat offence, I think 4 is okay. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. Like, I don't disagree that Bearman should be punished here. I don't know if I like the idea of repeat offences. It's like, should it really matter if he's done it before? I mean, maybe, but that's not... I don't know. That's maybe not how the rules should be done. And I don't really think that's what they are doing here. I just think that's what the guidelines, I guess, say, that a red flag breach could be up to 4 penalty points, and they've decided to give him the maximum. So he's now on 8 for the 12-month period. The penalty is for the offence, not the outcome. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree. It's just 4 seems, because 4 is almost as many as they can possibly give you, right? Like, if I deliberately crash into someone and take them out of the race, I get 4 penalty points. So, I don't know. It is what it is. I don't mind it because it's like, it makes drivers closer to race bans and stuff, which is maybe more exciting for all of us. It's kind of funny, right? Because Bearman subbed in for Magnussen last year, didn't he, when Magnussen had his ban? And now Bearman's not a million miles away for one either, because he's already at 8 and he's only been racing half a year. We'll see. I know that Bearman will know, like, damn, that was stupid, and it was. So he deserved... I mean, he deserved punishment from his own team as well for breaking off the front of the car for no good reason. So anyway, that's the Ollie Bearman piece, if you guys haven't seen it yet. As always, if you guys see something happening during the broadcast today that I don't see in real time, then then let me know in the chat, and I'll try and keep looking at the chat as much as I can. How are the Aston upgrades looking? We'll have a look at the timelines in a second. Gabriel says, my predictions for today are Lando pole, Leclerc second, Piastri third. I think that's a reasonable prediction. I'm expecting it to be very, very tight at the top indeed. Is Bortoletto's car okay for quali? I will say his engineer suggested that it would be fine. I think they can fix this for quali. His car did... Yeah, the floor, I think, also took some serious damage here. It might be quite a big fix, but I think they can fix it. I'm not too worried about Bortoletto for qualifying. And yes, I will be doing a poll for pole in due course. When we've got everyone in here in a few minutes' time, we've currently got 760 you all, then yes, we'll be doing a poll. Hit the like button if you're enjoying. Okay, let's get into things. I wanted to go through a bit of the discussion on Max real quick, because... there's been a couple of updates from yesterday. We got Christian Horner saying a few interesting words. He said this: Max is a key part of our team and has been for 10 years. The intention is to keep that going, but one day, whether it's a year after or the year after that, there will be a day where there is no more Max. Which obviously is true. At some point, there's going to be no Max. It is what it is. He's going to leave eventually. But when? And this is the question. I just think Horner for years has never... said anything to this effect. It's always been from Horner, Max is here to stay, we've got a contract with Max, we're satisfied with our situation. But no, it's turned around, and quite swiftly now Horner is saying, damn, one day Max is gonna leave, it ain't looking so good. Then he said, Christian Horner, when pressed, it's impossible to say 100% whether Max is going to stay. Is it clear that George will stay at Mercedes or not? So it's kind of a bit of classic deflection here. I think this situation is getting very interesting. What I will say for you guys, you know what, I'm going to give you a sneak peek. For those who are all here, I'm probably going to do a video about this at some point, but I will actually bring up this article because I might do a video about it tomorrow or the next day. But for those of you joining us live, this I thought was a very interesting thing I saw yesterday. Before I get to that, I will just shout out the super chat real quick. Thank you to G Wolf for the $10. I think it's going to be close to McLaren and Ferrari. Do you think mediums will be used in qualifying? I doubt it personally. These compounds are softer, but they're not the softest. So I don't expect to see some mediums. Maybe on some of the first runs in Q1, somebody puts them on. Not impossible. But I think in all likelihood, the soft is the quicker tyre. In these conditions, I certainly would expect that. But yeah, thank you very much for the super chat. We have 45 minutes until qualifying. Absolutely right. So this is what I wanted to tell you guys. I saw this article yesterday. I thought it was really quite interesting. What it says, and now what I will say is this based on evidence or is this just a fan theory? But it is coming from a publication. Who put it out? F Uno or whatever, I don't know. Seem Italian. So say what you will. The point, the article alleges that Toto is under pressure by Mercedes, and to be fair, for relatively good reason. The team has won, I mean, how many races in the last few years? They won Brazil in 2022. They won nothing in 2023. They won 4 races last year. Austria, Las Vegas, Silverstone, Spa. They've won 1 race so far this year in Canada, and they've been nowhere near the championship fight. So, understandably, you win 8 titles in a row. The board is going to put pressure on the team. The theory basically goes that Toto's under pressure to make sure that Mercedes return to winning ways next season. I think the big L for Mercedes is the fact that McLaren are winning the championships. Like, that's a big L, let's be real. That's pretty embarrassing. To get cooked by a customer team, very embarrassing. Losing to Red Bull when they're dominant and they've got Adrian Newey and Max is the best, it's like, okay, whatever. But losing to McLaren becomes pretty embarrassing. So the argument goes that Toto wants to get Max because he kind of needs to, because he's under a lot of pressure to deliver, and Max, gives them a higher chance to win. That's the theory. Do you guys agree? I don't know. We'll see. But I'll probably talk about this article in the coming days in a bit more detail because I thought it was kind of interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was some truth to that. So we'll probably come back to that in due course. I did see this from Horner as well. He was like, who do you sign if Max were to leave? Oscar. I'm sure he was kind of joking. But I mentioned in the video yesterday that there was a rumour last year that when Max might have left because of the Horner WhatsApp messages drama, that they were looking to get Alex Albon back and they were looking to get Piastri. I just don't think that's doable now. That's the thing. It's just not doable. So what do you do if you're Red Bull, if Max leaves? Like, genuinely, what do Red Bull do? I guess they get Russell. But if I'm Russell, do I want to go to Red Bull? Or would I prefer to go to Aston if they'll give me an offer, which they probably would? I don't know. I think it's very interesting. But it seems to be taking... Like, this is not going away. And then people say, there's just no way there's no smoke without fire in this case, right? So, I still feel that my opinion that they will keep George and Kimi is correct. I think that's still the most likely outcome. But it honestly depends on days like today. Like, days like today are quite critical because if Max just has no confidence that this car can do anything for him, then he's not going to stay, is he? Like, he's just not going to stay. Especially when Horner said this today, which I thought if I was Max, I'd be hearing this and thinking, what's my exit clause again? Like, George, can you please just do well this race so I can drop down to 4th in the championship? Because Horner says, to expect us to be ahead of Mercedes next year, it would be embarrassing for Mercedes if we were, or for any manufacturer. So it's a strange admission from Horner, because he's not wrong exactly. Like, if Red Bull powertrains in their first year as a power manufacturer outdo Mercedes, then yeah, it's embarrassing for Mercedes. But it's also admitting that the chances, because it's only embarrassing because the chances that Red Bull do it are very low. So, you know, he's admitting that the chances of them having a good engine compared to Mercedes are very low. Like, that's the only read on this, isn't it, really? So, I don't know. The more that Horner speaks, the more that if I'm Max, I'm thinking, you know, what's the buyout again, Toto? How much money have you got, type thing. So, anyway, thanks for all the messages in the chat. Sorry I can't read and reply to all of them, but I just wanted to run through a load of the topics of today before we get into some predictions for qualifying in a couple of minutes' time. I know that some have even said, what if you put Max in the V-carb? You know, throw him in the racing bulls. It would be fascinating to see. Damn, 1,000 viewers in the chat right now. Thank you all. We have 40 minutes until the start of qualifying. Hit a like button if you are new and enjoying the show. Obviously, it's Red Bull Powertrain's Ford, so we'll see. And damn, we've got Rab20 in the chat, one of my alternate accounts. George is probably getting a 2 or 3 year contract extension. There was a rumour that George has been offered a 1 year extension, like a 1+1, which wouldn't surprise me because, you know, at the end of the day, I as Mercedes have the leverage here. George does not really have the leverage. There's nowhere else that he can go. So as good as George is, he doesn't have leverage yet. If Aston Martin come out the gates next year and they're cooking, then maybe George gets a bit more leverage because they've certainly indicated their intention to do something like that potentially as well. Do you think the Ford engine will ever be a success? I don't think there's enough time. Like, my honest opinion is, Bav, that, might be pronouncing that wrong, my bad, Bav Tech Racing anyway, that the rumour is that they're going to try and bring back V10s or V8s with a turbo or V8s with like a small hybrid component or whatever with sustainable fuels at some point. And they're going to do that as early as possible, as like 2029. I don't know if there's the time for manufacturers to get these engine regulations right. That's my concern. My concern is that whatever happens in the first year is going to be very consistent over the next few years. Anyway, bit of a tangent. He should take a 1+1. He could be a champ in 2026. I agree. If I'm George and Toto gives me a contract, like, I probably am just signing it because then I don't have to worry about Max anymore. At least at that point, if you know, if Max comes in, then he comes in for Kimi. And, you know, who knows what that looks like exactly. So, yeah, that's the news on Verstappen, some of the drama. I did want to give a bit of reaction to the way that practice went today. We're going to have a look at some of the practice data from the last couple of days as well. And we're going to see what happens. And this is George Russell. The 1+1 is too unsettling. 2030 is a plausible timeline for V10, V8. Yeah, I agree. I think 2030, sorry, maybe 2029, but probably 2030. And if that's true, then I don't know. It's just only a few years, isn't it? Like, if you think about it, these engine regulations have been around since 2014, and they've been effectively the same turbo hybrids since then. The next iteration of engines are not going to last that long. Like, they're only going to be around a few years. So I just don't know what that means for teams like Red Bull, who are brand new manufacturers, effectively. Rab, what if George gets the WTC in 2026? It would make no sense to drop him, right? Yeah, look, if he wins the championship, you extend his contract. Like, at the end of the day, the only reason why Toto would want to sign Max is that article that I shared a second ago, which suggests that Toto's under pressure to win a championship, to get back to winning ways. If George wins, then they're going to stick with him. Like, and I think that they probably should, but who knows? This is George Russell right at the end of practice today, and he did this a number of times throughout the weekend so far, and that is a big lock-up into the loop. So we go Abbey, Farm, Village, the loop. So this is actually into Village, isn't it? I try and know the corner names on this track. No other track do I really know any of the corner names, apart from maybe Imola, but Imola's now off the calendar. So that's all I can say. Kelly, George, good driver, but just not very likable guy. Yeah, you know, I don't massively disagree with that. I think that's probably a reasonable assessment. But I don't know. You guys know my opinion. I think George is better than he gets credit for. Is he Max Verstappen? No. So, you know, that's the big debate, really, as far as I see it for next year. But George, like, he sums up Mercedes so well. Like, George is such a Mercedes driver. Like, I can't imagine him driving for anybody else. Do you know what I mean? That's my opinion. But the Mercedes was struggling. He was definitely struggling. And started the weekend pretty well. I will say Antonelli has at times been quicker than George this weekend so far. So it's an interesting watch for qualifying. But I think a lot of that is because the car seems very, very tricky. Through Maggers and Beckett's, they've been having their issues. Through Club, which is the final couple of corners, Antonelli was struggling a little bit there. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, Mercedes, it's interesting. These conditions today, I'll just look up the weather in Silverstone, should be helping them. Now, the conditions seem quite favourable. It's 22 degrees right now, 20 degrees actually, at 3 o'clock when qualifying starts. No rain forecast. Quite breezy, right? Like, there has been a big talking point of this weekend's, the gust of breeze, taking their turns, screwing over drivers. Thank you, D. Stevens, for the $5 tuning in from San Diego, California. My day starts with a cup of coffee and TacticalRab. Thanks for the excellent content. Go Sir Lewis Hamilton. Probably we should talk about Lewis Hamilton. So let's get into Ferrari. Now, these were the results of practice yesterday. Hamilton was fastest of anyone in the first practice session. Maybe not the most representative ever, because if you look at the time, say you're talking a 1:26.8. The guys today were doing in the mid 1:25s. The all-time record is Hamilton's here at a 1:24.3, I think, in the W11, which should come as no real surprise back in 2020. So I don't know whether they'll get... It's interesting, really, because this track, it should be good for these ground effect cars. And it is good for these ground effect cars, right? Like, they generate so much speed so much downforce in the high speeds that corners like Copse and Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel and Stowe are just devastatingly quick. But these absolute boats lose a lot of time in corners like in the loop, and they lose a lot of time at Brooklands and Luffield, and even at the last couple of corners. Like, I was watching Hamilton's lap here in 2020, and the amount of speed he could take through the exit of Luffield in the W11 was just so much higher than they can take nowadays. Anyway, that is not relevant to today, I guess we'll say that. So this was the first practice, and it was relatively clear quite early on that Ferrari are, this weekend's, there or thereabouts. Now, we're going to look at some of the race pace data in a second and what that looks like, because that's pretty compelling as well. And I will do the poll on pole position in a second, guys. Do you not worry, do not you worry, whatever, about that. We'll get to that in a second. Damn, we've nearly got 1,200 people in here. Appreciate you all tuning in. One of the best pre-shows that we've done. And damn right, it's the British Grand Prix, baby. It doesn't get much better than this. Am I biased by saying this is my favourite track? I'm not biased, right? Like, that's not British bias, is it? It is a bit of British bias, because there are other great tracks, but I don't think there's any track that quite hits like Silverstone. As much as I love Suzuka and Interlagos and even Spa to an extent, Silverstone, I just don't think you can beat it. I don't think you can beat days like today. And we'll see and it should be super competitive, which is the most exciting thing for me. Now, these were the numbers after free practice 3. Now, if you guys didn't watch FP3, then you might wonder why Hamilton is down here in 11th. That's because he actually, if you guys haven't tuned into the stream earlier, he was on a lap that was right there with Leclerc. He was actually a 10th up on Leclerc, then the red flag happened. That's why Hamilton ended up down in P11. Oh, we'll get onto that data in a second. But Leclerc was rapid today, like really rapid, and it feels like Ferrari have figured something out. Now, I think the other thing to know is Verstappen, Red Bull have done it again. I don't know how Red Bull do it, but they keep dragging themselves out of the hole. They are horrific on Friday. Max is driving what looks like a bloody pirate ship. He can't get the thing to turn through Village in the loop. And then he turns up today, and the car looks pretty good. Like, Verstappen was having a good time. Like,
Verstappen's first sector at many tracks is really strong. It does feel like he pushes it harder sometimes than others and maybe takes a bit of an L on the tyres at the end of the lap, but it's just a feature I think you tend to see. And Max has been right there. And even for Yuki, I will say, what impressed me a little about Yuki was that, he's half a second off Max again. But that lap that Yuki did was actually only a 10th down after the second sector. So Yuki was within a 10th of Max after sector 1, sector 2. He lost quite a bit in Stowe, and then he had a big moment at Club, and he lost a bit more time there. But Yuki wasn't a million miles away, and actually through, let's say, the more technical section of the track, Yuki was actually like right there. So I think that goes to show that, the Red Bull is competent enough, maybe. Like, it feels like they've made some steps there. And their race pace is good, potentially very good. So that's where Red Bull currently sits. This was the first session in quite a while where Piastri has been ahead of Lando. Obviously not massively. And Piastri and Lando are always going to be close. But, every session in Austria that Lando drove, he was ahead. And it was true in FP1 and FP2 as well. So this was the first time. And it was obviously only 0.04 of a second. But it was, I think, a kind of a big session for Piastri because he was quite a way off yesterday. So for Oscar to be right back there, let's say, took his learnings overnight from Friday practice and come into today once again right in the hunt for pole. Like, Oscar will be top 3 in quali today. I would be surprised if he's not. I don't expect Oscar to get pole. I think somebody else will put in a lap better than Oscar's, but Oscar will be right there. So that's, of course, what makes him such a threat. It's kind of tough for Bearman because Bearman was P6 and then binned his car in the wall and then has got a 10-place penalty, so he's going to be starting at the back. The Alpines are just absolutely miserable, which is hilarious. I don't know. What do you think? Like, what one word would you use to describe the Alpine situation? I don't really have a good word. Apart from the word I just used, which feels a bit unfair, but there is something comical about Alpine. Let me read the chat real quick while you guys have a look at all of these numbers on the screen. Lando will get better, no doubt. Quali is Lando. Norris didn't get a lap in at the ends. That is true. Hamilton, yeah. We'll talk about Ferrari because I've got one little piece of news to share on Ferrari before we kind of discuss quali predictions. Will it rain? Should I go on the weather radar? It's not going to help, is it? I remember doing that for Miami a few rounds ago. Weather radar, Silverstone. It's not going to rain. The chances are like so slim. It's not going to rain. Silverstone weather radar. Yeah, it's cloudy, but it's not going to rain, I don't think. Oh, there's the circuit. Yeah, I think we're going to be fine on the rain front, which maybe is good, maybe is bad. I wouldn't mind a few spots tomorrow. That might be nice. French masterclass, garbage, one word, not good. Alpine is French. Shite. Williams prediction. Good question on Williams, actually. My prediction is that at least one of the cars doesn't finish tomorrow's race. This is a challenging circuit on engines. And like the way that the engines work nowadays, because Silverstone doesn't have as many heavy braking zones as some other tracks. Like if you think about the Silverstone layout, there's a heavy braking zone into Village, so turn 3. There's a heavy braking zone going into Club, but really the whole lap you have 2 heavy braking zones. The rest of the corners are quite flowing, right? So there isn't as much opportunity for the car to brake heavily, recover loads of energy, and the engine is kind of always on high alert. So the teams that struggle with their engine, cough cough, the French team, like they are just cooked around here. Like they're so cooked. And I guess the other side of that is, if your car is struggling with reliability, Silverstone is definitely one of the tracks you don't want to be at. So I think that's the concern for Williams, is that they've had 3 horrific weekends with reliability, and now they come to Silverstone, which is probably not a track that they would really like to be at right now if they could avoid it. But they might still be quite quick. I think maybe the guys to watch a little bit are in the Racing Bulls. I'm actually fascinated to see how Lawson does against Hadjar this weekend, because last weekend he finally had a good weekend against Hadjar. Like, he finally was just better than him all weekends. He had a bit of a moment today. Was it with Gasly? He, like, it was a bit of road rage, let's say. He didn't get investigated for it, though, Lawson. But Lawson is one of those drivers. We know that he does like to, let's say, throw a few punches into the mix. So, yeah, we'll get back to the Ferrari convo in just a second. And, Rab, what are your thoughts on the Mercs changing performance based on temperature? Not many other teams have that problem. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I want to say it's overblown a little bit. But I don't think it is. It was definitely an issue with last year's car. I thought that their temperature issues were somewhat resolved this year, and people still talking about it were a little bit off the mark. But actually, over the last couple of weekends, there's definitely evidence to suggest it, and the team keeps talking about it. So, yeah, okay. Let me do this quick thing on Ferrari, because there is an article that I wanted to mention. There's a few things here. One of which is from McLaren. This is from Zach Brown, and we know what Zach Brown's like. Zach Brown will say, oh yeah, well, the Williams are looking good. Damn, Fernando, looking pretty quick in that Aston with the new upgrades. Whoa, got to watch out for Bortoletto. Like, Zach Brown will throw anyone into the mix. Like, he will not ever want to say that McLaren are the favourites. So, whenever Zach Brown says something, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. But he does say that the Ferraris look fast in race trim and in quali pace as well. That this is maybe the key note on Ferrari this weekend. Because whatever happens today, Ferrari's chances of winning tomorrow are determined in large part by whether they need to lift and coast every bloody lap, which has been a major issue for them, and especially for Charles Leclerc, but for Hamilton as well. And there are two reasons to lift and coast. One of them in Austria was brake temperature. The brakes were a major issue in Austria because there are so many heavy braking zones into turn 3, into turn 4, and, well, really those two braking zones. But, like, they're big braking zones, and even turn 1 to some degree in Austria. But those are heavy braking zones. They come just after another, and brake temperatures are difficult to control. It's such a short lap. Silverstone, as I said, not as many heavy braking zones. Brake temperatures getting out of control shouldn't be too much of an issue. The other option is plank wear, and that could be an issue here. But Gazetta say, well, Auto Racer say, that they didn't have to change their ride height. So after yesterday, after FP2, they looked at the data and they said, you know what, this is sustainable. We can keep this ride height. We're not going to wear out the plank too much. We can get away with it. And that's what Ferrari think, and therefore they've stuck with the same setup today. And it seems that the new floor has given them what they wanted. They might still have to lift and coast. Like, look, I'm not going to lie. If Charles Leclerc gets told on lap 4 that it's time to introduce some lift coast, then, I'm rage quitting this sport. But it would just be very frustrating. If I was Charles Leclerc, I'd be rage quitting. I will say this was quite an interesting piece from De Kesser. Now, he mentioned that comment in the article, but he says, everything will depend on the temperatures. Norris has already been as fast as the 2024 pole, but Ferrari has surprised the competition. The SF25 today was, this is yesterday, the SF25 today was practically what it was supposed to be based on the winter numbers. So that I thought was quite compelling, because really, this is the first big upgrade, this floor, that Ferrari have brought all year. And what they're saying is that this is what the car was meant to be all along. What they saw in the wind tunnel, what they saw in the data and all this. This was meant to be the car that they've had since Melbourne. And they believe that finally they have the machine that they expected. And maybe that machine was never going to be good enough anyway, if the McLaren made the step that they have done. But yeah, we've got the Ferrari Copium is back, ladies and gentlemen. Jay for Funsies with the $10 super chat. Thank you very much. Silverstone, baby, who's your top 3 at the end of Q3? Does Hamilton keep the streak alive? Well, Hamilton's streak, of course, is for the races, getting it on the podium. Does Hamilton keep the streak alive this weekend? I think you can never rule it out. Like, Hamilton around here can never rule it out, but who knows what happens. I think Hamilton's chances of getting a podium or better this weekend are probably like 50-60%. I think they're in that kind of ballpark. But I wouldn't say it's anywhere near guaranteed, because both of the McLarens, Leclerc is strong. Leclerc's super strong around here as well. And Max, you can never count Max out either. So I guess we should probably get into that. So that's the Ferrari thing. That's what's going on there. That's why they look more competitive. What does the race data look like? And kind of tough to say. So yesterday Hamilton was really struggling with graining when they did these runs in FP2, but presumably they've, dialed that out of the setup issues today. Leclerc's run yesterday was maybe like the most impressive part of the day for Ferrari, really. That's what, because Ferrari were quick yesterday and Leclerc was quick this morning, but Leclerc's long run pace, averaging a 1:32.1 over 11 laps, was really competitive. Like, that was just as competitive as Norris and Piastri, and they did fewer laps. It was just as competitive as, Verstappen, and he did fewer laps. And Russell and Antonelli, they did longer runs, and maybe on more fuel, who knows, but they did longer runs, and they went... My thing just crashed for some reason, but I think we're still here. If you guys can still hear me, then let me know. Okay, we're still here. Don't know what happened there on mine. It's fine. But Russell and Antonelli, they were 32.8s, right? They were nowhere near. So this is why, again, this is why people are talking about it. Yeah, Yuki's 5-lap run is horrible. I don't know, man. I feel for Yuki. I really do feel for Yuki. Can Yuki get into Q3? You know what? This is my question today. So what I'll do is I'll bring up the results of FP3, and I'm going to put a poll in the chat. And the poll is going to be, where does Yuki finish in quali? Is it going to be pole? Is it? I don't know why I even put that in. Is it going to be Q1 exit? Is it going to be Q2 exit? Or is it going to be top 10? I'm just going to go with that. And if we've got any real diehard Yuki fans in here, then feel free to vote as you like. But yeah, that's my first question for you all, because Yuki in FP3, he was there or thereabouts. He was... he wasn't a million miles away, but he was still half a second. He was still half a second off Max. I'm hoping that he can at least get into Q2. I think that he can at least get into Q2. Q2, and that is wishful thinking. Maybe. This Max downfall, we waited for times like this. I mean, it's not... I don't know if I would call this a Max downfall this year. Like, the Max is still doing a very commendable job, but the McLarens are just better. Like, watching the McLarens fast laps today, I was just like, bloody hell, how do they have so much grip through the slower corners? I thought it was insane. Just how consistent the car is. Is the title fight over for Max? I think we can definitively answer that after tomorrow. I think the realistic answer is yes. Like, he really is too far behind, especially after the DNF last time out. So, yeah, I think realistically, the title fight is over for Max this year. But we're not even halfway through the season, right? What if tomorrow Max wins, both of the McLarens take each other out, and Red Bull bring a big upgrade into Spa? Who knows? Not going to happen, but you never know. I think realistically the fight is over for Max. It is a two McLaren battle. Yuki is regressing, and so is Max until Max nails it. I mean, yeah, Max was struggling yesterday too. There's no denying that. Yuki pulled by 10 seconds. Yuki puts in a good bank, and then it starts pissing it down out of nowhere. This dirty gene, like Magnussen Brazil 2022. I would love it to start pissing down out of nowhere. That would be a story of an age. Yuki's just been sandbagging. Yeah, actually, on God, that is very true. That's also what I choose to believe. Depends if Antonelli takes Max out of the race again. Antonelli's just trying to do his future teammate a favour. I don't know. Funny thing is, the crash with George and Kimi ended his fight. Max's time is over, same like it was for Vettel. I think it's too soon to say that. But I love I love the different opinions that people have here in Formula One. Yuki pole by 6/10. All right, how many people have voted in this poll right now? 360 votes. I think I'll end it because there's only one winner of this, and that is as follows. So, okay, so half of you guys have gone Q2 exit, so you've at least got faith that Yuki's going to make it to Q3 or past Q1. Past Q1. Q3 is maybe a bit much. 11% Yuki pole. I wonder what the odds on that would be right now. Yuki just making Lawson feel good. Yuki P1, everyone else DNS. Will you admit that Perez wasn't the issue and he just wanted to glaze a young boy? Honestly, no, I won't admit that. I think that Perez was part of the issue, in my opinion. I actually won't back down on that opinion. Like, I do think that Perez was just pretty bad. He's just, like, in my opinion, the decision to get rid of Perez was justified. Just in hindsight, the way that the car has continued to go, I think that, like, they regret paying him off. I think in hindsight, would they have dropped him in the circumstances? No. But and should they have done? Probably not. I think the issue is that they gave him the contract extension. Like, I don't think necessarily they made the wrong decision. What they did do wrong was give him the contract extension. Like, dropping Perez for an alternate driver this season was not necessarily a bad idea. I think it was probably worth a go. Like, you know, was Perez doing any better than Yuki currently is? If you look at the last few races, the answer is maybe yes, but maybe no. And also this year, the gaps are even tighter. But yeah, I just think Red Bull definitely made a mistake. And probably in hindsight, the decision to drop him, having given him the extension, was a mistake because they paid him off for no reason. But I think in general, the idea of dropping him at the end of last season for another driver was justified. It just probably wasn't justified given they had to pay him $20 million to do it. So that's my take. But you guys know that I have my opinions. And it's not like I won't change my mind, but sometimes you just got to die on the hill. But, that's my opinion. So, okay, let's do it. We've got 30 minutes until qualifying. I'm watching Lando Norris do a lap here of Silverstone, commentated by Anthony Davidson. And it's about time we talk about whether the miracle is going to be real, whether anything can happen. So let's do it. Honestly, guys, I don't know who to put for this poll. Because who's going to get pole? I mean, how do I do it? I only have 4 options. I can only choose 4 drivers. So, because I want to put Russell in there as well, but I can't really. I mean, I've got to go Norris. I've got to go... I mean, should I just do... I don't know. Maybe I have to do team first. Yeah, maybe I'll do it like this. I want the Snowder fans to come through cooking here. All right, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do 2 polls. We're going to do it this way. Okay, this is the poll. I might do this in future as well if you guys think it's better. And we are going to do the 4 teams, and you guys can pick who you think's getting pole out of these 8 drivers. And then once we have that narrowed down, we are going to narrow it down a little bit further until we find the pole winner. Titan Fighter 12, Ian Porter or bust. Most people in the chat, they won't know. They won't know who Ian Porter is, unfortunately. But Ian Porter might go. The greatest racing driver on the planet. So yeah, we have Yuki in the mix. If you guys voted Yuki for pole in the last poll, then I'm expecting you to double up on that. Jensen saying Max is the greatest driver to get in an F1 car. He's so salty after Lewis left him in the mud. I think you find it, like, what the ex-F1 drivers have to say is always very interesting. Like, Rosberg will always gas up Lewis to high heaven because the better that Lewis looks, the better that Rosberg looks for beating him. I think that's always, at the end of the day, these racing drivers have always got a bit of an ego. So, a bit of an ego is probably a bit of an understatement, to be fair. So, yes, Rebel will be equipped with spoon engines along with T66 turbos, NOS and a Motic system exhaust. Hopefully they put that in Yuki's car. That's what I want to see. Checo is not the problem, just glad he got paid. Yeah, and look, I don't think Checo was the problem. I'm not saying Checo was the problem. There's obviously other problems, but... I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. Alpine are doing some sandbagging. The car is 20 seconds faster than McLaren. Yuki needs to cut his losses. He'd make the best game character. Super Yuki. Man, I love Yuki. I want to see him on the grid next year. He's honestly one of my favourite drivers. It's just a shame, you know. Like that Red Bull second seat is like a siren singing such a beautiful song from the shore, and then you just go and crash your boat into the rocks. That's how it feels to be a Red Bull sister seat driver. It's not the size that matters, says Dirty Gene. Ain't that the truth? Okay, let me end this poll, see how it's going. We've got 352 votes in here. Interesting. Okay, so if I end the poll, we have votes. That poll is going to go to one of Hamilton, Leclerc, Norris or Piastri. So let's do it. Let's see how Delulu the chat is feeling today. Poll. Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, or Hamilton. Based on your discussion, this is the new poll. And this is the answer. What are my predictions as you guys vote for this? That is a good question. My predictions are that... Okay, let me first think about Verstappen. Max is going to be in the mix, but I don't think he's going to have enough for pole. I think he's going to be a couple of tenths off. I expect Max to be a couple of tenths away. It's actually really tough to call today. It's really, really tough to call today. If I had to, if I was putting money on pole today, I would put my money on Norris. I know that Mal just called it. Rob is a Norris lover. I'm really not. That's the thing. I actually, I'm not really a big fan of Lando, but I just think he's pretty good. I don't know, he's pretty quick. And the McLaren just looks so good. I'm scared that McLaren are sandbagging again, and they're gonna just dunk a load of time. I think that, look, my prediction is, the delusion in me says that Hamilton is getting a podium tomorrow. The realist in me says that I think Leclerc will out-qualify Hamilton today by about half a tenth. I think it's going to be very close, but I think that Leclerc will... I think it'll be very tight, but I could see Leclerc out-qualifying Hamilton. The question for me is where that puts him, right? Okay, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say super tight qualifying, Norris pole, Leclerc seconds, Hamilton third, Piastri fourth, Max fifth. But Max is going to be 2.7 tenths off pole, and the top 5 drivers are going to be separated by that. Those are my predictions. But Caesar says, Verstappen pole, mark my words, absolutely cannot rule that out. So, but it would be really interesting. And yeah, as Leandro says, Russell pole. So where the hell is Russell in this conversation? Because I've not even mentioned Mercedes. And Mercedes were P1, P2 around here last year in quali. Maybe they can find something. I can't have much faith in Mercedes after they couldn't bloody get the car to turn into the first couple of corners. Max definitely makes top 3 in quali. Yeah, I believe that could be true as well. I mean, Max could easily go top 3. I don't know. You're probably right, actually. God, this is one of the most interesting qualifying sessions to predict, that I can remember. Because it's all over the place today. It really is all over the place. Finally, we have another team that feel a bit capable. Russell is racing the weather. MTA, my heart says Ham, Leclerc, Norris, Piastri. My head says Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Ham. Which I think is, yeah, I think my personal opinion is, I think Hamilton will be quick and he will probably be very close. The issue is, for Hamilton, is that he needs to be really, really on it. And I think he can be, and probably will be, but the gaps are going to be so tight. I'm expecting the gaps to be tight. The funny thing is, if the gaps aren't tight, then you know what that means. That means Norris is on pole by 4/10, right? Like, or Piastri maybe, but you know what I mean. So the only chance the other teams have is if McLaren don't just have something in the locker. I don't think they do have anything in the locker. JKA says, mark my words, Kimi pole. Yeah, what do you think the chances are of Kimi out qualifying George? I think quite slim, but not impossible. Because Russell, the Mercedes has been a little bit all over the place lately. Norris first, Leclerc second, Piastri third. I think it would be, regardless of what happens with Ferrari, obviously I'd love to see them finally have a good weekend here, get on the podium, Hamilton get on the podium. It'd be a phenomenal story. What I'm really interested in is what it means for the championship. At the end of the day, that is a lot of where my focus is what happens between Piastri and Norris. Because if Norris gets on pole today and delivers, then the championship becomes very interesting. Like, it's already very interesting. But then you can definitely argue that the tide is shifting in the championship. But that requires Lando to deliver. And we know that we've not always seen that all that often in recent times. So that's pretty much where we are. Diego says, top 4 tomorrow, Yuki, Max, Hadjar, Liam. Max has 2 points on license. Well, he's only got 3 points that they can do. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is 4 minutes to the hour. It has been a awkward Leon. I predict Bearman will start P20. Or when Bearman sticks it on pole and starts P11, you better come crawling back. But yes, gentlemen, ladies, it's been a pleasure to spend this last hour talking with you all. I'm now going to go and put some washing on and watch this qualifying for the next hour. And I will see you all on the channel in a few hours' time when we do the recap video. Actually, I should probably end the poll just before I end the show, because you guys have voted. Delusion or not, Hamilton, 43% of the vote for pole. Norris, 26%. Leclerc, 17%. Piastri, 11%. It's, is it delusional? I don't know. I think, like, my feeling is that Hamilton has a really, really good chance tomorrow. I just think he needs to qualify well. Like, if Hamilton qualifies 4th or better, like, he's in a really, really good spot tomorrow. But I think it's all over the place. And Mercedes could be in the mix. Can't count out Max. Can't count out Yuki, my boy. I don't know. Maybe you can't even count out a man like Isaac Hadjar. But yeah, I see us loading into the beautiful circuit that is Silverstone. And I'll be back to talk to you guys all about it in the next couple of hours. So thanks all for joining me. And at some point, as I say, we will do a watch along here on the channel. But, you know, it's pretty tiring standing up for an hour. So I'm going to relax for a little bit. Okay, take care, everyone. And one of the best pre-shows we've done, I think. So thanks all for the support as ever. And we're not going away. Take care.